America's turning 250, and it's time to rock out with our forefathers. American-made, battle-ready style for true patriots. Whether you're marching in the parade, grilling in the backyard, or raising a toast to liberty, do it in the gear that screams freedom. Celebrate 250 years of USA in style. Wear your American pride loud. Trendjackers.etsy.com. Grab yours before the fireworks.
From Governor's Comedy Club in Levittown, this is Sports Bash presented by TicketBash.com. TicketBash.com, where memories are made affordable and where you'll never pay a service fee. Sports Bash is also presented by Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service, keeping Long Island warm for over 18 years, serving their customers in Nassau and Suffolk with pride, honesty, and integrity. For more information, visit www.liboilers.com. Sports Bash is brought to you by the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. Every customer is considered family at the Embassy Diner. Mention Sports Bash and get a free dessert with your meal. By Coach's Collectibles, your number one source for 100% authentic sports memorabilia and live public autograph events. Check them out online at coachescollectiblesny.com. Stay tuned to find out about the Coach's Collectibles Item of the Week. That's coming up later on in the program. And the Marty Lyons Foundation, the official charity of Sports Bash Media. For more information, go to martylyonsfoundation.org. Hi again, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm Peter Schwartz. Welcome to the show. 516-465-3990 is the number to call. Make sure you're subscribing to Govs Comedy Club podcast channel on YouTube and follow Sports Bash Media on X, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also now listen to Sports Bash on demand on Apple Music and Spotify. Coming up later in the show, we'll have What's Hot at TicketBash.com, the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day. We'll have the Coach's Collectibles Item of the Week. But you know, from time to time here on the show, we like to do this thing called FOP, Friend of Peter, and that's when I invite in a friend of mine in the business, whether it's sports, TV, music. We've done a little bit of everything here on the show, and with the hockey season actually starting tonight, the Rangers open up tonight against the Penguins, but the Islanders open up also against the Penguins on Thursday in Pittsburgh. And I reconnected with this guy not long ago, and we've been texting back and forth. We've seen each other at a couple of different events recently, and I'm like, this would be great if we can get this guy on the show. And you know how my affection for the Islanders, and that's why I'm wearing the shirt today. But we had to get this guy on to just reminisce about the old days. And we'll talk about the new Islanders, the current Islanders season that's going to start on Thursday. A legendary former, longtime equipment manager for the Islanders. And when you think about all-time great Islanders, excluding the players and the coaches, people that have given their heart and soul to the franchise, Joe McMahon's name is front and center with all of that, and it's good to have you here on the program.
Thank you, Peter. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
We've been talking about this for a while. I guess you were at the National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame induction, getting the George Young Award not long ago. And that's when we first kind of like started talking about it. It would be great because we're always, every time we see each other, we talk about the old days, whether it was 93 or, the end of the dynasty when you joined the organization. But we finally were able to pull this off on this really, like, it's October and the hockey season is starting. We're in the middle of football. The baseball playoffs are going on and it's still 90 freaking degrees outside. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. It doesn't feel like hockey weather yet.
Absolutely. But by the way, we talked about this off the air. This is a little bit of a homecoming for you coming here to Governors here in Levittown, where you're originally from. So it's not only we're going to talk Islanders today, but you're kind of back home.
I am. I grew up a block and a half away. Like I said earlier, I used to walk through this parking lot to go to church on Sundays.
Yeah. And did you make it there?
Not all the time. There was some video machine games over there that some of the quarters went in for sure.
Right. So the Tri-County Flea Market over there used to be a Mays department store for many, many years. Yeah. And now it's a great flea market, and here we are at Governors. Let me start here because we're not talking about the Islanders all these years later. To me, had it not been for two guys, number one, Bill Torrey, the architect of the dynasty, and Al Arbour, who was the coach. And when you joined the Islanders when they were trying to go for the 5th Cup, that was your first year, and then you worked with the team for a long time after that. Can you put into words? We know what those two guys meant to the team, but can you put into words what those two guys meant to you as a young kid starting out in sports and to grow with the franchise like you did under their tutelage?
Absolutely. I mean, Mr. Torrey and Al were two of the most amazing men I've ever met in my entire life. And, they always preached about everybody pulling the rope together, family feel. Whether I was back then a stick boy, I was 15, 16 years old at the time. Everybody was treated equally.
Now that had to be cool. You grow up rooting for a team and you start to work for them and you're the stick boy. You're handing Bossy and Trache and Potvin and Gillies a nice from their sticks.
It was surreal, but you know what? It was always everybody, the players always treated the staff with respect. Jimmy Pickard and the late now Ron Waske, God rest. Yeah. Everybody, they treated everybody. And you got to realize back then there really wasn't any free agency. So players hung around for a long time and you could not have special relationships. And I would work with mainly Al every day because he was the coach. Mr. Torrey was always up in the office, but when they would come down they were always worried, like, Joey, did you eat? Make sure you ate. And if I was on the road trip, Joey, make sure you go have a pregame meal. And and the one thing about Al, he wasn't very good at the VCR back then is doing replay. And when he yelled my name, Joey, I knew he was having a problem. And then sometimes I would say, Coach, you just have to press play. And then he'd be like, all right, get out of here.
I wonder how he would have handled the current technology. Like if you transformed him to coaching the Islanders now and dealing with the video department and the analytics department, like how do you think Al would have adapted to this now?
I don't know if he would have done well. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but who started all of this was Claire Arbour.
Yeah.
Right? So Claire was the one where Al would say to her,
the matriarch.
Okay, right. She was so huge. And first of all, Al coming to Long Island because from St. Louis. But she would have to take notes and she would write down the numbers off the VCR and then write them on a piece of paper and then give them to Al. And then Al would come in and have Claire's handwriting on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then he would try to fast forward and sometimes he'd go past it. And Al was one of the first coaches who really put that into play as part of preparation.
Watching
videos of, we had it on the wheeling display thing and Al would do it, So,
Al, for me, growing up an Islanders fan, I mean, I would say somebody just posted on Twitter all over yesterday that it was National Coaches Day. Oh. So I put a post up on X, Happy National Coaches Day, and I put up 4 pictures. I put up Al Arbour. I put up Joe Torrey because I put in parentheses manager because he wasn't a coach, he was a manager. Weeb Eubank, I was alive for the Jets-only Super Bowl, and Red Holzman, who coached the Knicks, the 2 NBA championships. But it was Al Arbour. I mean, when I think about my childhood, I mean, I lived a pretty good childhood. We both did. But for me, like the Yankees won in 77 and 78, and then came the Islanders dynasty. I mean, this this man created so many great moments for me as a child growing up. And then, in subsequent years after graduating from college, I get to cover the Islanders and I get to talk to him all the time. And he was just, I throw around the word mensch very, very often. He was, to a certain extent, a very, very big mensch to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, Coach was, he was so fair. He was an excellent listener. If you had something going on, he knew about it, aside from the ice, about your play or whatnot. If you had something family going on, he truly cared about you. He really wanted the best for you. And I think that was the feel that they had, was that if you were going to become an Islander, be it a player or coach or staff, you had to buy into that feel.
He yelled at me twice.
Lucky.
Twice. So, and I don't know if I deserved it or not, but there were 2 times that Al Arbor, and he apologized for both of them. He did, and that was the type of person he was. But I, for whatever reason, twice I got him in the heat of the moment. There was one time, I think it was during the 92-93 season, which we're going to talk about later in the show, because that year was so unbelievably great for a year that didn't end with a Stanley Cup. It was about as special as you can find in Islanders history. But there was a long road trip, and you may even remember this. There was a long road trip in that season that ended with an afternoon game in Philadelphia. And I didn't travel with the team, but I went to Philadelphia to cover that end of the road trip. And the Islanders were having a good road trip, but it ended with they stunk up the Spectrum. I mean, it was just I think it was 4-1 they lost. And we're in the scrum afterward with Al, and I said to him, you had a chance for a winning road trip. I mean, did this kind of performance surprise you? And I don't know if he was he woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or like anybody could have. I think anybody could have asked that question and he would have jumped. But he jumped down my throat and said, "Don't you ever ask me stupid questions like that. Question the heart of this team." And he stormed off. And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't think I asked anything that badly." And the next home game, after the game, he apologized. Yeah. And there was another time too when he apologized. So I just must have gotten him. But I would imagine that was Al. Like like he could blow up like that. But at the end of the day, he was probably just a big teddy bear.
I could remember the first time I got yelled at by him.
Oh, okay.
So again, I'm 16 years old, and when Al came in to the locker room, we had a countdown clock in the locker room that would show, and he would wait till it hit us.
Did he know how to turn it on?
No, that he didn't know. But he had he would stand outside the door and wait. Yeah. And it'd be like 3, 2, 1. He would enter the room. He would give his speech. And as all the players were gone, we had 3 bins of gum. We had Wrigley's white, green, and bubble gum. And he reached in to get his 2 sticks of gum, which he did every game, every period, and it was empty. And I just happened to be the guy standing there. Yeah. And he turns to me, and if you remember Al's voice when he spoke, it was pretty, and he said, "Joey!" And I froze, and he said, "Where's the gum?"
Bleeping gum.
Bleeping gum.
We're a podcast. You could have said it.
And then he said to me, "What are we on, effing austerity?" I'm 16 years old. I didn't know what austerity meant.
I don't know what it means now.
So I run in the back, and I'm shaking because Al needs his gum before we go out to the ice, and he's got to get on the ice to coach. So Father Dan, our team chaplain at the time, comes in, and he's like, "Joey, are you okay?" And I said, "I don't know, but Al wants to know if we're on austerity." I don't know. So I quickly open up the gum, and I give it to him. And I said, "Coach, here's your gum." I said, "When the period's over, I'll find out if we're on austerity or not." Because I didn't know what it meant. And he left the locker room and he turned. And right before he went down the vomitory, he looked back at me and winked at me.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was going to get fired. Yeah, I forgot to put the gum.
Because you didn't know what austerity meant.
And I didn't know what austerity meant. But that was the first time. But our relationship was so special. He was such a father figure to me that when he passed, I was heartbroken.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were here on Long Island. Joe Mcmahon, legendary Islanders equipment manager, is here as my FOP, friend of Peter on Sports Bash, as we talk about the Islanders' old days. And obviously, we talk about Al. We have to talk about the bow tie and the architect in Bill Torrey. And in recent years, I've become friendly with one of his sons, Richard Torrey, and we've seen each other at some events. And it's just when you think back, again, he had to convince Al Arbor to come. Al thought Long Island was like New York City.
Yeah.
And Bill Torrey was finally able to convince him, and maybe you said with a little bit of help from Al Arbor's wife, Claire, to come here. But when you think about the great general managers in the history of any sport, it doesn't matter what sport it is, I mean, does it get any better than Bill?
Mr. Torrey, again, he had this ability to surround the players with the right people, be it other players or coaches or staff. I mean, obviously, Al was so legendary and so smart with the game, but Mr. Torrey and Al had such a relationship where they trusted each other, they discussed moves, things to do to make the team better. And again, back then there wasn't a lot of free agency, so...
Right. Well, they were probably... When you think about the relationship between a general manager and a coach, because even when a general manager hires a coach, they don't always get along because they can have a difference of opinion. They were about as connected as you could possibly be.
They sure were. And I'll tell you what, at the Coliseum, we had an old rickety sauna, I don't know if you remember, in the corner. And on game days, when I would be in there working and doing laundry or whatnot.
Does this have anything to do with austerity?
Austerity? No. Yes, it did, because we didn't have enough money to buy a new sauna. But I would hear them in the sauna. They would go into the sauna and they would stay in there for like a long time. And I said a lot of business got done in that sauna.
Yeah.
And they were bouncing ideas off each other about who should sit, who should we move on, and those types of things. And they did. They had a mutual trust for each other. I mean, listen, they were best friends. And I could remember Mr. Torrey after Al passed, and I called him to see how he was doing. We were talking, and he was clearly upset, and he said, I miss my best friend.
Yeah.
And again, I agree with you. I think there are times where GMs and coaches don't see eye to eye. Listen, they didn't see eye to eye on every solitary thing.
Right. I mean, listen, a boss and an employee, and that, however you want to categorize that relationship, there's always going to be some kind of disagreement. But for the most part, I mean, it's probably the greatest coach GM combination in history. It was the longest lasting. I mean, other teams have had great GMs and great coaches, but to have those two guys together for so long, and then Bill, obviously after the dynasty and things fall apart a little bit, but Bill Torrey actually restructures the Islanders with the LaFontaine trade and with the Brent Sutter trade. He reloads, and we'll talk more about 93, but not only did Bill Torrey build a winning team once, he basically built it twice.
Sure, and he also helped in Florida.
Yeah, and in Florida too.
Again, Mr. Torrey is just what an incredible hockey person.
Talk to me about the players on that Islanders dynasty. You came in during the run for the 5th Cup, and I think about this, me personally, just to be selfish for a second, going to those games and idolizing. Mike Bossy is my favorite athlete of all time. May he rest in peace. I had a chance to meet him several times. When I did play-by-play for the New York Dragons football team, he came to a game and he was very nice to do an interview with me for halftime. He's like, "Don't ask me about football." I'm like, "I'm not going to ask you about football. I'm going to ask you about hockey." But he was so... To now be around those guys at these events, like we were just at the Pat LaFontaine event, and I walk in and there's Bobby Nystrom and there's Eddie Westfall and all these guys are there. Tell me, we know how great they were on the ice. You were around them all the time. Talk to me about guys like Bossy and Potvin and Trottier and Gillies, all those guys. How special was that group?
Such a unique, special group of guys who truly, again, cared about everybody. I mean, my relationship with them back then, again, I was doing game nights, so I wasn't there every single day, but I was there a lot of days, even on practice days. And again, they treated me with respect. I was always there for them. They knew if they needed something, I was there to help them and whatnot. And my relationship with them is still strong to this day. I do my events still for my foundation, and Eddie Westfall still comes, and Clarkie always came, and Bobby Nye and all the guys. And again, my relationship with them is so strong. They were just so easy to be around. I learned right away though the one guy you didn't go near on game day was obviously Billy Smith. And
he would whack you with the
stick. Would hit me, but and he made that clear to me after we got to know each other a little bit.
Like he did the Glenn Anderson in the final.
But Smitty said to me that first year we were going for that last cup there, he said to me, he said, "Joey, you're going to be my guy this year." He said, "When I get off the ice, I get undressed and I'd like you to put my stuff away." And back then we had these Harry M. Stevens cups.
Harry M. Stevens.
And they were...
Didn't they run the concessions at Shea? And Shea also.
Shea Stadium.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
So he had these big cups, and he said to me, "All right, if we're up by more than 2 goals with a minute to go, you pour 2 Bud Lights in that cup." And he said, "And there better be foam on it." And I remember, I'm not even old enough to drink. And I have to pour. And then he said, "I want you to take 4 others and put one in each of my suit jacket pocket. So I would literally stand there and wait for the clock to go down, and I would then be like 3, 2, 1, and I would pour the beer,
right.
And then he would come in undressed. He would drink that like it was like table water, boom, and then he would shower and he would be on his way. But I knew not on game day. You don't talk to Smitty on game day.
On game day. There's certain guys who had some little quirks, and I guess that was one of them for him. Before we take a break, and I want to get some other things, but one of the reasons why you stepped away from the Islanders, obviously there was a year where you went through some real tough family issues. It's the reason why you have your golf outing every year. If you don't mind sharing with everybody the story of what happened with your family and what led you down this road to have your own foundation and to create the golf outing.
Sure, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So my wife Dorothy and I we already had our son Joseph, and we just wanted to expand our family. And so we decided we were going to have another child, and we had a normal pregnancy. Everything was normal. And given like any hockey person, you have to schedule things, try it around when you're going to be off. But it worked out that we were going to do a planned C-section the night before our home opener, I believe it was, or one of the games there. I remember against Detroit. And normal pregnancy, and unfortunately, when my son Aiden was born, he was born with some anomalies that we did not know about while he was, going through his growth inside, and so he wound up with 2 diseases that he was congenital. One was a heart disease, and one was called biliary atresia, which is only in infants, where he was born without a gallbladder, and his liver didn't have a place to drain. So he basically needed a liver transplant from birth, but his heart was sick, and he had a couple of other issues going on as well. So we had to make decisions quick, and my wife is a trauma nurse at Stony Brook, so she kind of knew what the journey could have been like and what the outcome was going to be. And we fought for a full year. He fought for a full year. Ultimately, went to a point where he needed a liver transplant because we were out of time. And, you talk about the hockey community. At the time, we were looking for a living donor. And do you remember Kerry Frazier?
Yes. Yep.
Kerry Frazier and I were very close, and he offered to get tested to become a donor. The equipment manager for the Devils at the time, Richie Matthews, my dear friend, he offered. But at that point, we were out of time, and we needed a liver. So my wife courageously donated part of her liver to my son Aiden. And unfortunately, 2 weeks after, he passed. So it was a traumatic thing for me.
It's not something that any family should ever have to go through.
The support that I got, I remember the day of the funeral. I know the league shut down. The entire NHL office was at the funeral. The Islanders shut down. The whole organization was here. And, I'll never forget the support that Charles Wong gave my wife and I during that time because we had to make a lot of trips into the city. And being an equipment guy, the players are so dependent on you, and we tried not to disrupt our normal daily things. We still had games and practices to get ready for. So Charles would send a car service to pick my wife up and Aiden and bring them in and out of the city all the time. And he treated me like gold during that difficult time. But, like I said, unfortunately, it didn't go our way. And I think when bad things like that happen, it made me realize that it really doesn't matter what kind of car you drive and what kind of suit you're wearing. Yeah. It's not about money.
Nope.
It's about what kind of person are you, and that's why my brothers and I decided as a family that we were going to create the Lena and Mcmahon Foundation and try to help people that we don't know. And we've raised just under $2 million since we started. We do a big golf outing once a year. American Liver Foundation is present, and we also give some of the money to hospice on Long Island as well. But, it's something that you don't want any family to have to go through. It really did change my life. And, you circle back to the Islander family about what Mr. Torrey and Al created, that here we are 24 years later. And this past year, I had 28 Islander alumni that came in for it. Yeah. And I probably spoke to 70 guys. Joey, I wish I could make it, but I couldn't make it this year.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, generations of Islanders. And for me, I look at the room because I hosted dinner the night before to see Eddie Westfall speaking to Claude Lapointe and to see all these other guys commingling with different eras is so special about really what it means to be an Islander.
Yeah, it's a special thing, and it's not just about the 4 Stanley Cups. It's not just about 15 or 16,000 people coming to those games. It is about what the Islanders have meant, and there's a reason why. And you see the logo on Joe's hat and on my shirt. You see that Long Island is on the logo, and I think it makes the Islanders logo most special. Is that we wear our community on the logo.
Exactly right. It's such a special market. I mean, it's Long Island, and again, you go back to Mr. Torrey and Al. If they didn't persevere, and if Mr. Torrey didn't make the moves he made when we had no money to buy things and stay at hotels and all the finagling that they had to do, there would be no Islanders.
Yeah, it's
today.
There's no question about it. It means a lot to wear the orange and blue. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more about the Islanders with Joe McMahon, the Islanders' former longtime equipment manager. We're going to really get into the 1992-93 season, which was so special, and we're going to get to that when we come back right after this. Hi, I'm Peter Schwartz.
And I'm Vinny Tickets.
We want to take a moment to talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Embassy Diner.
Embassy Diner has been a beloved staple in the restaurant industry for over 50 years. And the great thing about it is when you walk through the door, you're not a customer, you are family. Every visit promises to be filled with warmth, love, and respect.
And here's an extra treat. If you mention Sports Bash during your visit, you enjoy a free dessert on the Embassy Diner.
Come on down to the Embassy Diner, where great food and great company are always on the menu.
Visit the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. Hi, I'm Peter Schwartz.
And I'm Vinny.
Welcome back to Sports Bash, presented by TicketBash.com and the Ryan Anthony Head Start Fund. I'm Peter Schwartz. Our in-studio FOP, friend of Peter, is legendary Islanders equipment manager Joe McMahon, and we spent the first segment, Joe, really talking about the old days, of the old days, and the Dynasty Islanders. But when you think about, and it depends on how old of an Islander fan I guess one would be, what's your fondest memories? And for some younger Islander fans, it's the playoff run in 1992-93, which really came out of nowhere. I mean, the year before, the Islanders don't make the playoffs, especially after making all the Turgeon trade and all that stuff. But 92-93, can you talk to how special that was with everything that happened that the Islanders marched to the conference final?
It was probably the most fun year for me, being part of that team. That team, it was so special. What a group of guys. Relatively all of us were the same age, and we had such a gel to it that it just ran itself. Obviously with Al at the helm, making sure that everybody was still staying in line, but all of the pieces, like bringing in Malakoff and Kasparaitis and, Jeff Norton and all the Dennis Vasky and all these other guys that we had, it really, aside from Turge and Stevie Thomas and Derek King and Flats and Benny Hogan, all the guys that were putting the puck in the net, we had so many other role guys, Tommy Curvers, Claude Loisel, we had so many, Tommy Fitzgerald, so many guys, and everybody. I'll bet you if you asked all those guys, and even Hoagie, who won a Stanley Cup with Dallas, what was your favorite year in hockey? Even Heels, who won it with the Rangers, they'll all say 93.
He didn't play. He didn't play. He went to the Rangers the year after. He didn't play. When I think of the 92-93 playoff run, obviously it was wonderful seeing the Islanders get to the conference final, but obviously the one negative that happened was after, at the end of Game 6 against the Capitals, when Pierre Turgeon scores the goal to put the game away. He is run into the glass and injured by Dale Hunter, and I remember covering that game for SportsPhone, and I had to be outside the Capitals locker room when Dale Hunter was trying to stupidly explain what happened. But the backstory to that, and I've heard this, was that, people may not know this, but the visiting players had to walk past the Islander locker room in order to leave to go to the bus. And there is this story of how Mick Fukuda and Rich Pilon were waiting in a part of the Islanders' locker room for Dale Hunter to walk by, and they were going to attack him. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I was standing right there. So, after we were done and the handshake line and whatnot, I mean, everything was so skewed because our trainer, Eddie Tyberski, and the docs had already brought Turge inside into the training room and shut the door. We didn't know how severe the injury was. So when the game was over and we eliminated them, I would assume we did a handshake line. I just, so preoccupied, I could distinctively remember Mick and Chief coming in, getting undressed, and asking me for like t-shirts and a short and their sneakers, and because they were going to go after him, basically. So they basically went in, and now across the hallway from the locker room was the equipment office.
Yeah.
And that's why I usually kept all the extra laundry. So I remember they ran in, I got them their sneakers, and they got on. And at the time, I don't know if you remember, but in the hallway at the Coliseum, they had security that was obviously
There was a sliding gate
and there was
in
a
the
sliding
middle. Yes.
gate. And I
Yeah.
remember the guy fumbling to get the key to unlock it to try to pull the gate across. And I remember saying to our head of security, Jimmy Barone, back then, that gate's not going to hold these two guys back. I mean, they're going to bust through it because, you know, aside from, listen, it was Turge and it was our 100-point guy, and I get all that, but had it been anybody that got hit that dirty, Mick and Richie and Benny.
Well, that's how close the
That's
team
how
was.
close this group was. It could have been anybody. That they would have went after him,
Al
too.
Arbor snuffed it out, right?
But Al knew, because Al, I think, ran in right away to talk to the
Right.
trainers in the docks to see how Turge was doing. Like, was it dislocated? Was it, you know, did it pop in and out, whatnot? And then Al kind of came in and they tried to diffuse it. And I remember that they actually took Dale Hunter. And normally, like you said earlier, they would go through our locker room right there to leave. They actually took him out the back way and through a tunnel by the Marriott.
Wow.
To get him out, because there were some other people, too. But that was a real living thing.
Well, we have a caller on the line, 516-465-3990. Somebody wants to call in and talk about that 93 playoff run. This is Mick in Massachusetts. Mick, you're on with Peter and Joe.
Hey, guys, how you doing?
Is this...
Do you know who
It's
this voice
Mick
is?
from Massachusetts.
It's my buddy
from
Mick Vacoda.
Massachusetts.
It's Mick Vacoda.
Hey, Mickster.
Hey, Joe. Buddy, Joe, buddy, how are you?
I'm doing great.
So for those who haven't figured it out, this is former Islander Mick Vacoda, who we were just talking about. Hey, Mick.
Hi, Peter, how are you?
I'm doing great. This is a great thing here. Joe's doing great hosting the show. We were just talking about it. So what's your memory of that night during the 93 playoff run?
Yeah, Rich and I, Chief and I quickly came up with a plan that obviously Al snuffed out. We're not that smart, apparently. Richie was going to hide in our change room door, and when Hunter went by, Richie was going to get his attention, and he'd actually turn his back to the equipment room, and then I was going to come flying out of the equipment room and just, you know, smoke him from behind into the wall. And Al just came on, he looked at us, and he's like, what are you two dummies up to? You know, get in the room. And then, like Joey said, by the time everybody got wind of it, they whisked Hunter out. And it probably for the better, but I really wish we could have got him at the end, because, you know, like Joe mentioned, we stick up for each other all the time, but Turge is arguably one of the nicest, kindest teammates. Joe can attest everything he does for Joe's charitable foundation, and Pierre still comes to it.
Yeah.
And he's a Hall of Famer, and he sits with us and treats us like, you know, we're the guy next to him.
I have to tell you, Mick, and I've been in sports radio and broadcasting, whatever, for 35 years, and I've had some really great moments. I was telling Joey this, off the air, but I've had a chance to do some really cool things. The hardest thing I've ever had to do in this business, I covered that game, and I covered the Islanders back then for Sports Phone, and to stand outside the Capitals locker room and listen to Dale Hunter try to explain his reasoning, saying he didn't realize he had scored a goal. I just was finishing the play. Do you realize how much restraint I had to show as a reporter not to knock his block off standing there with my microphone in my hand?
Yeah, I can imagine that everybody must have just been astounded by his response.
Yeah.
You know, the Coliseum the roof came off when he scored. Mm-hmm. And so, and there's, you know, when you watch the clip, there's literally 20 seconds between the goal and when he cross-checks him from behind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just, and I've talked to Turge about it, and I think Hunter tried to reach out, but there's no reaching out after something like that.
No.
You know, that's just one of those things that'll go down in the history of the game as one of the ugliest incidents you'll ever see.
What's your favorite memory of Joe McMahon?
Joey getting me my beers, making sure I had beers after the game, which
you know what? It's true. I would look down the bench, and if we were either going to like Hartford, Philly, or Jersey, and I would look at Mick and I would say stir, and he would put up how many with his fingers. Like if he put up 4, that was 4 cases in the back of the bus. Even if Al said no beer, I still got it on the back of the bus for Mick, no matter what.
Yeah, he'd sneak it on there in a milk crate with a black bag of ice, and it would be under the seat at the back of the bus. And it was my fondest memories is that we never. And I realize it's changed and nobody does that anymore. But yeah, that was a crucial part to my mental health back in the day, was being able to unwind with a few cold beers.
Mick Foucault is joining us for a few minutes here on the show. Just overall, that 92-93 season, I mean, you had a nice run with the Islanders, and you were a fan favorite. But when you think back just to that season overall and getting to the conference final, I'm sure it's got to be the highlight of your career going through that run with that team under Al Arbour.
Yeah, it was not special to say the least, but like Joe mentioned, it kind of took a life of its own. Like, we were such a close-knit group of guys. We went to dinner on the road, large groups, almost everybody. Very inclusive character on that team where, it says a lot about like stars like Terge and Kinger and Steve Thomas treating everybody equal. I felt as important on that team, playing 6 minutes a night as, our first unit power play. And I remember going to Pittsburgh. Al dressed me for Game 7, and Terge, who was not 100%, but they were going to use Terge on the power play if we needed. And I sat beside him I had one shift that game, and it was an icing call, and it was Grant Jennings going back to get the puck, and I'm like, here I go, I'm going to get my hit in, and it would have been a questionable hit right at the whistle, and so I pulled up, missed him, and slammed into the boards, shattering my big toe.
Oh, geez.
And after the game, Al goes, well, it's a good thing I only gave you one shift. You'd be in a body cast right now if you played anymore.
That's awesome.
But we went into that. We were up 3-1 in that game.
Yeah.
With 5 minutes to go, and in that game, early in that game, Kevin Stevens and Rich Pilon collided. And another thing that no one mentions is that it's unfortunate Kevin Stevens sustained such a serious injury, but he should have got called for charging. It was an icing call, and Rich saw him out of the corner of his eye. They collided, and the recoil, Richie's helmet, slammed forward into Kevin's face and knocked him unconscious. And you could have heard a pin drop in that building. It was a horrific scene, and you don't ever want to see anybody get hurt, especially like that. But that place went silent, and then when they tied it up, I think some people had maybe left and they were running back into the building. And we went into the intermission before overtime, and our room was visibly down and upset. And we said, if before the series, because all the prognosticators said we were getting swept without Terge, we had no chance. So we said, if before the series someone said, we're going to just fast forward to Game 7 overtime, and you guys have a chance, we'd all jumped at it.
Sure.
We'd all said, let's go.
Joe is smiling. Joe, as you're talking, Mick, Joe is smiling ear to ear because he's chomping at the bit to share his thoughts on that exact situation.
Well, Mick, do you remember when? So we're up 3-1, like I said, and I was in the hallway. I wasn't on the bench, right? So in case they needed something from the locker room, I could get it over to the bench. So 5 minutes to go, we're up 3-1, and the NHL guy comes down and says, Joey, here they are. And he gives me these boxes, and it had Patrick Division Champs, Islanders hats, and T-shirts.
Oh.
So I'm like, we're up 3-1, 5 minutes left. Okay. So I took them, and I put them all out in the locker room. I hung them on everybody's hook. And that locker room was terrible. 3-2.
Civic Arena in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, at the Igloo. So it was 3-2, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then 3-3, I ran back inside. I took it all down, put it in the box, and I shoved it in one of the bathroom stalls. Got it all cleaned up. We go to overtime. And Mick, I don't know if you remember this, but the locker room was so small that we had to put the goalies on the other side of the wall, right? And Ray Ferraro wanted to have a chair kind of in the doorway area there. And I remember clear as day, Mick, I don't know if you remember, he said, "Boys, we're going to be okay." He goes, we got the Stanley Cup champs in overtime in their building. Somebody in here is going to be a hero. We got this. Do you remember that, Mick? And I don't know.
Yeah, I do.
And I felt like, we got it.
Yeah.
I just knew we were going to win. And then David Volek, fast forward, we got it done.
Mick, how good of a teammate was David Volek? Because, during that season, he became Al's whipping boy, and he had another goal in that game earlier in the game, and he winds up scoring the game winner in overtime at 5:16, which is the Nassau County area code, which was apropos at the time. What were your memories of David Volek, and how great was it to see him score that game-winning goal in overtime?
Yeah, I think part of him having the ability to rise to an occasion is having to go through, Al being on him a lot and pushing him and telling him that he could be better and he could do better. And that, the greatest thing that Al instilled in all of us is how much he believed in us. I say this all the time, that, Al won 3 as a player, and I truly believe he wanted his players to experience that level of success. And when I say he wanted you to have that, it's what he would do. And for example, with David Volek, David would just keep working on his skill after practice because he just wanted to be better. And his character was shaped by Al being hard on him, because if he wasn't hard on you, he didn't care. He didn't want you to succeed. And he just pushed people to get the most out of them. And it's not surprising that David was the hero that night.
Mick, one final thing from me, because we got a couple minutes left in the segment. What are your thoughts on this year's Islanders, the new excitement around them with the new GM, Matthew Darsh, and the first overall pick, Matthew Schaefer, who made the team? He'll be in the lineup Thursday. How excited are you for the new Islander season?
Oh, awesome. Very excited. And I'll tell you, I watched the draft, and I'm 59 years old now, and I got an 11-year-old son, and he's like, "Why are you crying?" And I'm like, "Buddy, this story is amazing. Mm-hmm. What this young man has gone through, but the poise and the character in which the way he carries himself. I'm just really excited for Long Island and that team to have someone like that, because I personally feel that's a once-in-a-lifetime type player. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I hope the expectation shouldn't be so high. There's a learning curve, and he's a young man. He's a kid in a man's body. So I think that the future looks great. Goaltending, they've got some snipers up front. I think getting off to a good start is a crucial part to this season.
Joey, anything left for your buddy Mick?
No, Mick, this was such a nice surprise. Mick was in town for my golf outing, so I saw him about a month ago.
Yeah, I wanted to give you a little surprise.
I love that. That was awesome. Love Mick.
Yeah.
Well, that's because I miss you, Joe.
Me too, buddy.
Mick, we'll see you here. I assume you'll be in town for Alumni Weekend when Pat LaFontaine is inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's the plan.
All righty. Well, thank you so much on short notice for doing this. That was awesome going down memory lane.
Awesome, Peter. Thanks for having me. Take care, Joe.
All right. Love you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
That was great. Thanks, Mick. Mick Fukuda. A really quick story about Mick from my perspective. Me and a good friend of mine, Scott Wetzel, who I don't know if you remember, he used to be a radio stringer too when I was in the locker room. You'd recognize the face if you saw him. And so a lot of nights we're in the locker room, and you have to get interviews with the players on the game that night, but also sometimes you were charged with getting a player to talk about the next game, because we didn't always go to practice. Right. We were a radio reporter, so you wanted to get guys to talk about the next game. And inevitably, every time we went in the locker room, if the Rangers were the next game, me and Scott are like, we got to get somebody to talk about playing the Rangers. Let's just get Mick. And we would go to Greg Boris, the PR director, and say, "Is Mick around?" And he looks at the two of us and says, you guys want him to talk about the Rangers, don't you? Like, yeah. And Mick would always come out and he'd be more, and you hear him talk, like for a tough guy, a guy who was like known for his fisticuffs, he was always very well spoken. That's what I loved about him.
And accessible.
And he even had a hat trick in a game against the Capitals.
Yes, he did. And Mick loved Long Island. Listen, he married a girl from Long Island. I mean, he loved it here. He loved playing here.
We have still a lot more to go up until 2 o'clock. We have some more things to get to. We've got some other things that we do here on the show that will involve you in when we come back. This segment of Sports Bash is presented by Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service, keeping Long Island warm for over 18 years, serving their customers in Nassau and Suffolk with pride, honesty, and integrity. For more information, visit www.liboilers.com. Coming up next, more with Joe McMahon. We'll talk more about the Islanders, especially what's coming up on December 13th. We'll tell you about that with Pat LaFontaine is coming up. We'll talk to Joe about that. We also have What's Hot at ticketbash.com, the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day, and the Coach's Collectibles item of the week. It's all coming up when we come back right after this. We want to take a moment to talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Embassy Diner.
Embassy Diner has been a beloved staple in the restaurant industry for over 50 years. And the great thing about it is when you walk through the door, you're not a customer, you are family. Every visit promises to be filled with warmth, love, and respect.
And here's an extra treat. If you mention Sports Bash during your visit, you enjoy a free dessert on the Embassy Diner.
Come on down to the Embassy Diner, where great food and great company are always on the menu.
Visit the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. Hi.
In 1982, the Marty Lyons Foundation began with a single heartfelt mission: to bring moments of joy and hope to critically ill children by granting wishes that make their dreams come true. Since that day, we have touched the lives of over 8,500 families, raising over $43 million to grant wishes that offer a beacon of light in their darkest times. These precious wishes cost an average of $6,700 each, and your support is crucial to our mission. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. And with 76 cents of every dollar going directly to supporting our families, you can rest assured your support truly changes lives. The Marty Lyons Foundation operates 11 chapters in 14 states now, working tirelessly to reach as many children as we can. This dedication goes hand in hand with our commitment to transparency and accountability, earning us top ratings on Charity Navigator, Great Nonprofits, and Candid, which underscores our dedication to those we serve. The Marty Lyons Foundation grants wishes to children ages 3 to 17. And what really makes this foundation so special is our willingness to grant not only a first wish, but also consider a second wish to a child who continues to battle a life-threatening illness. We stand by these children, offering them hope and strength through the power of dreams, giving our children the courage to wish for more.
What's your purpose in life? Is your purpose in life to live in the big house and drive the nice car? No. Your purpose in this life is to make it a little bit better for those that follow and realize that we live for today to see a better tomorrow.
Visit MartyLyonsFoundation.org to learn more and get involved.
Welcome back to Sports Bash, presented by Ticketbash.com and the Ryan Anthony Heating and Air Conditioning Service. I'm Peter Schwartz, 516-465-3990. No more surprises. If anybody calls now, Joe, it's a legitimate phone call.
Gotcha.
Joe McMahon, the Islanders' former legendary longtime equipment manager, Mick Fukuda. Thank you so much, Mick, for surprising Joey and calling in. That was a great segment with Mick.
Nice.
Before we move on to what's happening on December 13th, what's one more thing about the night in Pittsburgh, Game 7, and as we've talked about, Islanders are up 3-1. We think it's all done. Pittsburgh comes back and ties the game. I'm going to tell you, I'm watching that game at home, and by that point, my parents had built an apartment for me. I was working at Sports Film, and I was home from college, obviously, having graduated, but I still stayed at home. But I had my own apartment downstairs in the house. And I'm watching the game because I didn't travel. I covered the team for Sports Film, but I didn't travel. I'm watching it at home. And just sweating. It's 3-1. My mom comes, and I'm bringing this up because my mother watches every show here, and she's watching. It was the only time in my life I ever cursed at my mother.
Uh-oh.
My mom comes down the stairs when it was 3-1 because she's watching upstairs. She goes, "How about that? They're going to win."
Oh.
I said, "Mom, you don't do that. The game is not over. There's like 8 minutes to go in the game." She goes, "Oh, but they're winning 3-1. I'm like, "Mom, go back upstairs."
Yeah.
No. And if they tie the game. And I'm telling you, Joe, I marched during the intermission. I marched up the stairs and I walked into the other room and I said, "Mom, don't you ever effing do that to me again, because now they're going into overtime." I lost my mind. It was the only time I ever cursed at my mother in my life.
Yeah, well, that is usually the kiss of death.
And she and to her credit, she never did that again. She never did that again. But I had to just make sure I brought that up. Something really special is happening on December 13th. And I have been on my soapbox asking for this to happen for years, because it's unfortunate what happened with Pat LaFontaine and the Islanders. Not once, but twice. Obviously, the most notable one was when the original ownership, or John Pickett, reneged on a contract extension, and then Pat asked for a trade, and they wind up trading him to Buffalo. He comes back as an unpaid advisor to Charles Wang. It doesn't work out. He leaves again. So there were these seemingly irreparable damages that were done between Pat LaFontaine, who still wound up spending 8 of his 15 years with the Islanders. He's still among league leaders and all-time team leaders in various offensive categories. But I always why can't they just put all of this aside and make amends? He should at the very least be in the Hall of Fame, and I can even understand the people that say retire number 16 and put it in the rafters. But I wanted him to be in the Islanders Hall of Fame, and every time I would see him at an event, I would say it. I would say it publicly. I would say it on a podcast. I would say it in an article that I wrote, whatever. And we were both at the Companions in Courage golf outing a couple of weeks ago, and that's when it was announced that Pat LaFontaine is going to be the 17th member of the Islanders Hall of Fame. He's going to get inducted on December 13th when the Islanders take on the Lightning. And there's a reason why we have you here on the show today, because you had relationships and connections with all these guys. Talk to me about Pat LaFontaine. Are you as thrilled, happy, excited as I am that he's going into the Islanders Hall of Fame?
I absolutely am. Patty is so deserving of it. Again, Patty and I started at the same time, entered in the league at the same time, and we were close from the beginning. From the very beginning, Pat used to call in when we were at Caniac Park, and he would say, "Joey, you want me to bring you an egg sandwich in the morning?" Like, he was genuine salt of the earth. Aside from being an amazing hockey player, he's even a more amazing husband, father, and friend.
And what he's done with that foundation, just and a thing or two about putting a foundation together. But what him and Jim Johnson have done with that foundation is remarkable.
Truly remarkable. To help these children and build these Lions dens all over the country, and to get the support from Microsoft and the NHL and the Islanders, and to be able to build these rooms for parents that need a place for their kids to go where they're battling certain things. I've said to Patty and Jimmy Johnson many times, I wish I had a room like that when I was going through it with my son Aiden. Truly remarkable. They are so successful. And again, I've shared this a few other times. I mean, Pat has said all along, it's not about the goals at our age, it's about the assists.
The assists.
And him and JJ have put countless tireless hours into this, and they have built something amazing. Truly remarkable.
And while we're talking about Jim, and we've both known him for years, this one of the great people I've ever met in sports, and he's going through a difficult time now as well. So, thoughts and prayers with him, because hopefully he can pull through what he's going through and keep doing the strong things he does with Pat. When you think about Pat's career with the Islanders, obviously he joins the team after the Olympics and going for the 5th cup and losing to Edmonton, but he had so many other iconic moments with the team before he was traded. And of course, none bigger or more memorable than the Easter epic when he scores in the 4th overtime. And I remember having conniptions watching this game. I was home from college for the weekend and wound up watching the game. You are there at the Capitol Center. Tell me about the mood there in overtime. And he tells the story about how Jim Pickard said, Pop. He called him Pop.
Yeah.
You're gonna get it.
You're gonna get it.
Tell me about that night in Landover, Maryland.
Well, I got to tell you, my experience was when we went into it like normal, like we were just going to play the game and whatnot, and we had no idea it was going to go that long. But
I don't think anybody thought it was going to go that long.
But, as it was going along, we had players that weren't playing. Like, I think Denny Potvin wasn't dressed that night or whatnot, but we had a change room in the back, and the locker room there, again, was very, very small. And back then, when we would travel to road games, we packed everything in a Ford truck. Like, it wasn't anything fancy. So we didn't bring a lot of extra things with us. So as the game went on, guys, laundry underneath was soaked. Their gloves were soaked. Their pants. I remember guys were saying, Joey, can I get new gloves? Can I get this? I remember having hair dryers going that I was trying to dry gloves with a hair dryer, trying to, just anything I could get my hands on to make things not wet for the guys.
Yeah.
And as the game kept going on, before we actually got to the fourth overtime, it might have been Patty. Somebody said, is there any way we can get oxygen? So I actually went down to the Capitals dressing room and I said to their trainer, hey, you guys got an oxygen tank? And they was like, yeah, it's over there. So I took it and I brought it down, and our guys were actually taking oxygen.
Wow.
Before that. But another side note to that was that Mr. Torrey was obviously there, and he was in the runway where the Zamboni came on and off. And again, that's where I stood.
Yeah.
So in case they needed change of gloves or something from the bench. So I was standing there, and I can remember at the fourth overtime, I was a little late getting out there. Mr. Torrey said to me, Joey, you got to be here at this time because of superstition, and whatnot. And then when that play evolved, I remember Gordy Dean came around and puck shot out, and Patty just
deflected out the Patty,
and it went in. And I have to tell you what a relief it was that we got to go home. But it was a great moment for Pat, a great moment for Islanders history, and that. And then I remember we packed up, we flew to Long Island. We restocked all the sticks. We got in the van, and then we drove to Philadelphia.
Yep, and then came up a little short against the Flyers.
Yeah.
But again, in that next round against the Flyers, again down 3-1, come back and tie the series, and they lose Game 7. But for Pat, December 13th, it's going to be a wonderful night. I know I'm going to be there. I've already told family members. I mean, unless something's really serious going on, like, don't bother me on December 13th. I'm going to be at UB, whether I'm there as a fan or a member of the media. I'm going to be at the game there that night to finally see LaFontaine added to that Ring of Honor in the Islanders Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so happy. I will obviously be there as well.
And it's alumni weekend. I think John Ledecky made that announcement because every year, and credit to John Ledecky for reconnecting the franchise with its alumni, because there were many, many years, as you know, where there were a lot of Islander players, a lot of former Islander players that didn't want to have anything to do with the franchise. And listen, there's still a few that are outstanding that they've not been able to bring back. And we talked about it privately off the air. There's one in particular I would love to see come back that hasn't. But they've done a really good job in bringing the alumni back and involving them with the team.
John Ledecky has been absolutely amazing, and the group of people that he hired that treat us like gold. I mean, I'm so fortunate. I've been invited to every alumni weekend since they've had it. I told John at Patty's event 2 weeks ago that I'm so blessed and thankful that I'm included in all of that. And, it was a period where really the only alumni game in town was my golf outing.
Yeah.
And guys would line up to come in for it because there really was a big disconnect. And
Al Arbor came back and coached one more game. Maybe we can bring you back and you can be on the bench for one more game.
I would love to sharpen some skates with some guys. I would love to do it. I would love to do it. I just think it's so great what John has done in the organization, because I think it's important for the younger players like the Matthew Schaefers and all these draft picks, because the future is so promising, so that they could actually feel and see what it means to be an Islander. Mm-hmm. And it's only going to make it better and give them wins and hopefully get a Stanley Cup back here to Long Island.
We finally, it's been a long time. We need that 5th Stanley Cup, no question. We do a couple of things here at the end of the show, so let me just run through them. What's hot at ticketbash.com. Yankees and Blue Jays, Game 3 of the ALDS tonight at Yankee Stadium. Game 4 is tomorrow, if necessary. Rangers home opener tonight against the Penguins. The Islanders home opener Saturday against the Capitals at UBS Arena. You can get the best seats at the best prices with no service fees for those games at ticketbash.com. Now the Coach's Collectibles item of the week, Joe, and this is a Matt Barzal framed 11x14 autographed photo, and you'll be able to see it up on that screen in just a few seconds because that screen's on a delay. Coach's Collectibles, your #1 source for 100% authentic sports memorabilia and live public autograph events. The next public autograph event will be Monday, October 13th, with the Islanders Identity Line. Cal Clutterbuck, Matt Martin, and Casey Cizikas. They'll be at Mulcahy's in Wantagh from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. For more information, visit coachescollectiblesny.com. Matt Barzal coming off the injury, looks great in training camp.
Yes.
Hopefully he can have that breakout season that gets him back on track.
That would be amazing. He's certainly a special player.
You're going to like this. It's time for the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day. We post a new poll question every Tuesday and Thursday on the Sports Bash Media X/Twitter page. And, of course, we made it about the Islanders for this show. And I've always thought about this. I've talked about it with other people, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. What was the best Islanders team that did not win the Stanley Cup? The best Islanders team that did not win the Stanley Cup, I give 4 choices. 1978-79, the year before the dynasty started. 1983-84, going for the 5th Cup and losing. 92-93, or 2020-21 when they went to Game 7 of the Final Four against Tampa Bay.
Oof.
That's 4 good choices.
It's 4 good choices. Oh, wow.
Can I give my choice first?
Yeah, go ahead.
78-79.
You know what?
Yeah, I was bitter when they lost to the
I think
Rangers
it's so
that year.
close.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to go 93.
92, 93.
I was there for
yeah,
that.
You were there. I
You
got
know,
it.
I was there for it.
By the way, usually Tony must feel a little insulted that we haven't brought him in at some point because I always mention, no, I'm only kidding. Tony Walker, my producer and the host of the Knock 'em Dead comedy show from 11 to 12:30 Monday through Friday, is also a big Islanders fan. Which of those 4 years, or maybe you have another one, the best Islanders team that did not win the Stanley Cup?
I was thinking 92-93, but I think I'm going 2021.
2021.
Yeah.
Going to Game 7, losing on a shorthanded goal when the Tampa Bay Lightning had 18 players on the ice.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, remember in '93 against Montreal? Remember how unhappy Al Arbor was after that one game? And I think it was Game 3 at the Coliseum. Then the Canadians scored was an overtime goal, and they had too many men on the ice. That it wasn't.
Well, it was that. Yes.
Yeah.
There was too many men, but the bigger thing about '93, I don't know how much time we have, but was
Tony will give us a couple extra minutes.
Was the stick, the illegal stick penalty against Tom Curvers?
Yeah.
Right. So, quick story with that. They call a stick check on Tommy Curvers. Turns out the stick's illegal, and we get a penalty. So we come off the ice, and Al says to me, Joey, I want you to go watch the sticks in between periods. Back then at the old Montreal Forum, the sticks were literally in a hallway. And what they would do is when the period was over, they would wheel the sticks in the Canadiens' dressing room and shut the door. So what do you think they were doing? Of course, they were measuring all of our sticks.
Yeah.
So I walked around and I went in the locker room and I stood there and I'm wearing my Islanders stuff and the players are coming out and they're cutting their sticks and they're like, what are you doing here? And I said, I got to watch the sticks. I mean, it's obvious you guys were checking sticks.
Yeah.
So we obviously didn't get called anything after that.
Right.
And fast forward, they got Marty McSorley in the finals that year for an illegal stick.
Yeah.
I mean, they were putting their sticks in their locker room. What do you think was going to happen?
Of course. Yeah, they're going to check it and they're going to do a little wise-ass stuff. The 4th annual Marty Lyons Foundation Evening of Thanks Gala is Thursday, November 13th at the Bourne Mansion in Oakdale. For more information, go to martylyonsfoundation.org. Coming up on this Thursday show, we're not ending just yet, but I just want to bring this up. I recap yesterday's Islanders community event when they partnered with the YMCA of Long Island and Kaboom to build a playground for the YMCA in Glen Cove. You'll have interviews with Islanders television voice Brendan Burke, Ann Renna, who's the Islanders VP of Community Relations and Executive Director of the Islanders Children's Foundation, and also Peter Foster, the Executive Director of the YMCA in Glen Cove. That's coming up on Thursday. A couple things before we say goodbye, and this has been so awesome having you in to talk Islanders for the hour. You sent me a picture. We were talking a lot about the 92-93 Islanders, and you sent me a picture today of you and some Islander alum standing around Al Arbor near the end of his life, unfortunately, a few years ago. Talk to me about that photograph, the people who were in it, and just how loved that man was.
Yeah, so when Coach was declining, and I always kept in touch with Claire, and just to see how Coach was doing. And when she said that he really had taken a turn, again, the bunch of us, we kept in close touch, and I said to the boys, Flats and Heels and Benny Hogray Ferrara, and that's Steve Worth, our physical therapist. We decided as a group who could make it down to go visit Al, because at that point he was in assisted living. And I remember we flew into Florida, down to Sarasota, and I remember walking in, and Flats and I were together, and we walked through the door, and Al was sitting there in a wheelchair, which was tough for us to see because he was just this presence.
He was a larger-than-life guy.
A larger-than-life human being. So Flats starts to cry and kind of walks away and leaves me first. And then I started to cry, and then I peeled away. And then I think Ray Ferraro was behind me, and then he went first. And he's like, thanks a lot, guys. And, you know, and we went in there, and we spent, I don't know how much time we were there, but it was so special that we got a chance to tell him we loved him and what he meant in our lives. And as we were saying goodbye, he was so weak, he couldn't really speak that strongly. But for me personally, he used to call me Joey, my boy. Joey, my boy, always. And I was one of the last ones to say goodbye. And he went like this to me, and he waved at me, and he said, Joey, my boy. And he made a motion that he wanted to kiss me. So I leaned in, and he kissed me. And I whispered something to him, and then I gave him a kiss back, and I said, I love you, Coach. And, you know, and that was the last time that we saw him. But that photo is so special, not only to all of us that were there, but for other 93 guys that tried to come. We tried to get as many guys to come down as possible. But for Benny and Ray and Flats and Heels and Steve, it was a very, very special moment for us that we got a chance to tell him we loved him and what he meant to us.
Yeah. He was one of a kind. There's no question about it. We miss him so much. We miss Bill Torrey. Yeah. We miss Mike Bossy and Clark Gillies. Ron Waske just passed away. So it's like these are people who made my childhood so special growing up. An Islanders fan. Before we say goodbye, I also want to give you one last chance to talk about your foundation, how people can help. Your next golf outing next summer is going to be your 25th, isn't
25,
it? 25 years of doing the golf outing. So tell people a little bit more about the foundation, how they can help, and how they can find out more about the golf outing.
Yeah, so our site is lam-foundation.com, and people can go on there. We have a Donate Now button. You know, one of the unique things about our foundation, aside from my Islander family that comes and still supports, is the support that I get from all the other teams around all the sports. Yeah. So if you're a sports collectible person, this is the place to go.
Guilty as charged.
At this year's outing, I had about 250 jerseys signed from all, you name the player, I had it. You know, and again, we're raising money for biliary atresia research, specifically for the American Liver Foundation in my son Aiden's name, and for hospice on Long Island, the bereavement program here. And unfortunately, at some point, we're all seem to be touched with having to deal with hospice. Two very worthwhile things. And, you know, again, I think to have an outlet to give and support makes you feel good about yourself. And this is certainly 100% of the money goes to the charity. Nobody collects a salary. There's no board that's taken a salary. 100% goes, and we donate it all out. And we've raised, like I said earlier, a little under $2 million so far. So,
how amenable were you as an equipment manager when a fan would ask for like a broken stick to toss over the thing? And because my kids are all into it, listen, and we're all sports memorabilia guys. Hey, it's a broken stick. Can I have it? Like, was that something you got a lot when you were the
every day? Joey, can I get a stick? Joey, can I get a puck? I mean, truth be told, though, like those seats behind our bench at the Coliseum, literally the front row behind our bench, were the worst seats I thought in Nassau Coliseum.
Terrible. You couldn't
see anything. So I used to go, especially Ranger games or something. The seats were full. I used to bring game pucks with me, and I would walk out and I would flip them over to the bench to everybody, and I would say, "Sorry, you have to look at this for 3 hours. I apologize. It's terrible. You spent a fortune to look at the back of me. That's terrible." But you know what? If it fit right, I would give it. Yeah, again, you have to know your audience, and I was always big on, you know, these fans are here to support us. A stick cost us nothing. I would. I mean, there were times where I would. One time in particular, how much time we have, but I had one boy, Joey, can I get a stick? Joey, can I get a stick? So I said to him, if we win tonight, meet me here after the game. Favorite player was Ziggy Palfy. We win the game. I told security, do not kick this kid out. Leave him and his dad here. The game ends. We go in. We do our post-game wrap-up real quick. I say to Ziggy, meet me in my office. Ziggy goes in. I say, grab a stick. He grabs a stick. I go out. I get the kid, and he has no idea what's happening.
Wow.
I grab him and his dad. I bring him in. I go in my office, and Ziggy's standing there with a stick. The kid was beyond excited. And I said,
"What a mensch!"
And what a mensch! And I said, "Ziggy, you know." And they met each other, and he signed the stick. And here we are now. Fast forward, our last alumni weekend at the Coliseum. They had us walk through, and they had the fans lined up, and we were signing autographs as we were entering the little tent. And the boy said to me, "Joey, do you remember me?" And I said, I don't. He said, you gave me that Ziggy Palfy stick.
Wow.
And that's my dad.
I have like chills.
And
now.
you know what? It was a broken stick that would never have been used again.
Right.
And it kept him being an Islander fan for life.
Yeah.
And to me, that is what it's about. The Islanders are not a big city thing. This is a community. We are Long Island.
Yeah.
Right? And we had to restore and bring that back, which is what, John, they're doing now, is that they're bringing that back.
They are.
Because there is certainly more than enough here to sustain this team at a high level.
I can't put into words how enjoyable this was to have you here on my show to talk about the Islanders, and you have to promise me that we'll get a chance to do this again.
I would love to.
I
would love to. Thank you,
My
Peter.
man.
This was fantastic.
That was awesome. One of the best shows we've ever had here, and this was great. And we're going to do this again at some point.
And thanks to
during
Mick.
the season.
That was
and
great.
thanks to Mick Fukuda. Yes,
great.
absolutely. I mean, it was real. And thanks to Tony Walker for hitting all the right buttons on the pictures, right? So we can't do this show without Tony. That will do it for today's edition of Sports Bash presented by TicketBash.com and Ryan Anthony's Heating and Air Conditioning Service. Thanks to my FOP, my friend of Peter for the day, Joe McMahon. Thanks to Mick Fukuda for calling in here on the show. Thanks to Tony Walker, everyone here at Governors. Thanks to our social media coordinator, Connor Calb, who's going to be very busy cutting up clips from this show because we covered a lot of bases here on the program. Sports Bash is sponsored by the Embassy Diner in Bethpage, Coaches Collectibles, and by the Marty Lyons Foundation. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening. Sports Bash is back on Thursday at 1 o'clock. Have a great day. And Yankees, can you win a game tonight, please?
Go
Thank
Yankees.
You.